live. Good morning, everyone. Welcome on behalf of the International Commission for Human Rights and Religious Freedom. We are having our monthly distinguished lecture as part of our Speaking Up series. I just wanted you to show our logo. That's the logo of the ICHRRF. And on behalf of the Board of Directors and the executive team of the ICHRRF, I invite all our audience members for the monthly series. A little bit about the ICHRRF. ICHRRF is a US-based nonprofit focused on upholding human rights and religious freedom through continuous monitoring, policy intervention, and collaboration. We are focused on educational, research, legal, and human rights advocacy and charitable purposes, and strive to be an advocate for the human rights and religious freedoms of underrepresented communities across the world. We believe that humankind can no longer afford to be selectively vocal about the rights of only a specific set of people. A humane and just world necessitates fair treatment of all living beings, and our focus is on indigenous rights and freedom, free speech, and their cultural preservation. Some of our initiatives include monitoring violations of the freedoms and sanctity of religious and philosophical minorities across the world, research into and documentation of the culture, history, and challenges faced by such communities, policy recommendations on human rights, religious diversity, and pluralism to international organizations, agencies, national and local governments, collaboration to support cultural and philosophical diversity across the world. And we do have Professor Ved P. Nanda Memorial Fellowship Training Program since January of 2022. So the topic for today's Speaking Up series is freedom to practice Romuva religion in Lithuania. And our distinguished speaker is Dr. Gintaras Songaila. Today is Sunday, June 16, 2024, and it is a few minutes past 10 a.m. Eastern Daytime. You will be seeing Dr. Songaila, that's his picture. A little bit of introduction for him. Dr. Gintaras Songaila was born in Lithuania, in Vilnius. He's a public and cultural figure, a politician, a former MP, publicist, educator, propagator of Lithuanian historical heritage and traditional culture, and manager of the public entity Foundation for Support of Press, Radio, and TV. He's a medical doctor and a psychiatrist by profession, having completed his studies at the Kaunas Medicine Institute, and now he is on the medical faculty of the Vilnius University. He specializes in the treatment of drug and alcohol addiction, and I am very proud to say that I share his profession, or both of us share the same profession and same passions. He is one of the founders of Protection of Lithuanian Cultural Heritage Movement in politics. In 1988, he was one of the 34 members of the Initiative Group of Sąjūdis, that is Movement for Lithuanian Independence. In 1990 and to 1992, he was a chief consultant in the Committee for Citizens' Rights and National Issues in the Lithuanian Parliament and founder of Lithuanian Independence Party. He has founded and edited many mass media outlets such as newspapers, radio, and TV channels. He is co-author and initiator of many strategic documents, programs, and projects in Lithuania in the field of information society, ITT, development of broadband digital networks, laws on mass media and electronic networks, education and science. He has won awards such as Medal of Independence, Medal of the 13th Century Award for Merits in NATO Integration of Lithuania, National Premium of Signatories of Independence, etc., etc. So the topic today is freedom to practice Romuva religion in Lithuania. This webinar is on the history and current revival of this indigenous Romuva religion in Lithuania. It is part of the pagan renaissance in the Western world, as well as in Eastern Europe. The Romuva religion has made significant strides after being resuscitated and is now having to grapple with active state repression by the government of Lithuania, to the extent that the followers of the religion had to approach the European Court of Human Rights. This webinar will dwell on the rich history, philosophy and culture of Romuva religion, the repression it underwent in the past, and the barriers it must overcome in present time in order to thrive in freedom. Dr. Songaila's presentation will be followed by questions and answers. Before I hand over the platform to him, just a few symbols of the religion. This is the Romuva flag, some of the cultural and spiritual practices of the Romuva religion. Again, the same. Again, the religious rituals of Romuva religion, including fire worship. A few housekeeping rules. I would want all the audience members to mute themselves to avoid noise interference. I'll request you to change your cell phone setting to vibration mode. Please do not interrupt our distinguished speaker. At the end of speaker's presentation, we'll take question and answers. All the questions have to be moderated through the chat room. Please be very precise and brief in your questions. Only those members of the audience who identify themselves on video camera will be allowed to ask questions. No anonymous questioners, please. We are recording this event and it will be available on our YouTube channel as well as on our website within the next 24 hours. And ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct honor and pleasure to present to you Dr. Gintaras Songaila for his presentation on freedom to practice Romuva religion in Lithuania. Sir, the platform is yours. Welcome very much indeed.
Thank you. First of all, I would say a few words about Lithuania and Romuva itself. You know, Lithuania is a small country in northeastern Europe, near Baltic Sea. In medieval times, it was a big country. One time in 14th, 15th century, it was almost the biggest country in Europe. It's very strange, of course, for for those who are not aware about our history. It was a last pagan statehood in Europe, and was an elite aristocrats of Lithuania decided to baptize themselves at the end of 14th century, part of Lithuania, because Lithuanian king decided to become also a king of Poland. But it was a baptization only of aristocratic layer of the country. The majority of people remained their indigenous religion up to 17th, 14th century. It started to decline only in 18th century, and up to 20th century, there still remained communities which believed in so-called Old Baltic religion, which has a name of Romuva. Why Romuva? It's a name of a regional sanctuary. There were such sanctuaries which had not buildings, but they were in open area near groves, waters, sacred waters, of course, and trees and stones. Of course, there was an infrastructure of service and priests. The priests were called Vaidila or feminine Vaidilute, which who cared for eternal fire, which was in this sanctuary. Fire, God, fire in Lithuania is called Ugnis. It's similar as in Sanskrit Agni, and rituals of fire worship is, of course, also have some similarities. And Lithuanians were called in Europe fire worshippers, or in Greek, pyrolatres. The pantheon was polytheistic and is now not every god or goddess of this pantheon is actual now, but we have a supreme god, Dievas, which is similar to Deus in Sanskrit or Deus in Latin, also called Viešpats, the Lord of all. Viešpats is similar as in Sanskrit Vishpati or Vishvapati. We have a lot of other world. Other world is called and still believed is Dausos, and the god is Velnius, and the afterward our souls are called Veles. We have the thunder god Perkunas, we have, which is similar to Parjanya in Sanskrit. We have Aušrinė, dawn goddess and goddess of healthiness, also similar as Usha in Sanskrit or Ushra, and so on. But it's not a matter now to explain everything about our religion, but it's about that we are not neo-paganistic religion as in all other Europe. We remained our traditions up to now. Of course, it was forbidden in Soviet occupation time, but still there was a practice. And Jonas Trinkūnas was one of initiators of revival of Romuva religion from 1968. Of course, after we regained our independence, the community of Romuva religion was registered in 1991. This is not a simple case because we Lithuanians, we fought for our right of to have our own indigenous religion for 300 years against crusaders, you know. So if to be precise, 250 years, but these so-called Northern Crusaders, they started already from 12th century against our neighbors. Some of them, majority of them, were also Baltic nations. The languages and religions were very similar. and the same religion and the same sanctuary called Romuva, in Old Prussian, for example, Ramava, and so on. And we have our neighbors in the north, Latvians, which still preserve a similar religion, so-called in scientific literature as Old Baltic religion. Now about the status and the rights of our religion in Lithuania. Of course, 80% of our population are Catholic Church believers. And the Catholic Church is treated as traditional religious community in Lithuania. But not only Catholic Church, but also Lutheran Church, also some Islamic denominations, because in medieval times our kings took population from, for example, from Crimea, from other countries which were of Islamic denomination. Do you hear me? Do you see me?
We can hear you. We can hear
Okay.
you and see you.
So there are three types of religion status in Lithuania. It's very, very complicated and strange. Very similar system is in Germany and in Austria. There are, as I mentioned, traditional, which are so-called Abrahamic religions, which Islamic, Protestant, Jewish, and Catholic and Christian Catholic Church. There are also so-called recognized by state religions. Romuva is not recognized by state, only registered according to law. What are differences of rights of all these types of religions? Catholic Church, they have special privileges. For example, to establish special educational and studying centers, including higher education, rights to educate Catholic religion in secular schools. They get salary for that, but they can qualify their teachers of Christianity religion in schools. Of course, pupils in Lithuania can choose. They can learn ethics, or they can learn the foundation of Christianity religion. Catholic Church has rights to establish. How to say? They have sometimes, not always, they got direct subsidies. They have rights to have activities as Catholic priests in military units, so-called capellan services. They have some autonomy in our organization, and the privilege to, they have exempts from taxes, from revenue tax, from property tax, also sometimes, not sometimes, but always from profit tax, unless they use money not for their services, but it is sometimes not easy to discern, how to say, what types of commercial activities they have and so on. The priests of Catholic Church, they have also privileges. They are exempt from taxes. The state pays security tax for priests, so they get pension, they get health services, not paying for them, state pays for that. The so-called recognized by state religions, they have not such a big amount of privileges as Catholic Church, but still they have privileges, tax exempts, they have a privileged status of priest, and so on. Not to mention that Catholic Church has rights for regular TV and radio programs financed by state, and so on. According to law, any religious community has a right to lift the status, to gain the status of so-called religion recognized by state. The census was 25 years. So in 216, the time has come to use a right for Romuva community to get a status of religion recognized by state. After examination, according to law, Ministry of Justice provided a conclusion, official conclusion, that Romuva fits to all requirements according to law. Support from society, ethics, and other regular requirements. And there was a first attempt in 2019 to get a recognition. The parliament should, according to law, parliament should acknowledge, parliament should vote for a special decision to recognize Romuva as religion who is recognized by state. But during the vote, it was in 1906-25, several votes were not enough to get the decision. It was very interesting that there was no question regarding the official conclusion of Ministry of Justice. Nobody argued against this conclusion, but simply Lithuanian Parliament did not vote according to law. There was one reason why it did not happen. There was a direct interference, a direct appeal of Catholic Church by Archbishop of Vilnius, directly to every parliament member, not to recognize Romuva community because, I don't know why, because it was pagan, and they still fight against pagans in Europe. The Archbishop of Vilnius, Gintaras, the same name, first name, which is Lithuanian, the same one, the sacred name Linas, and Grušas, his surname, is not a simply, how to say, simple person, not educated or whatever. He is also, still is, chairman of Conference of Bishops of Lithuania, and also from 2021, a chairman of Council of all conferences of bishops in Europe. There was the only argument at all during this vote was that it's a plan of our enemies, of Lithuanian enemies, of Kremlin or whatever, that support the revival of paganism in Lithuania. It's very strange, and it was a court case which this particular parliament member lost. So, what afterwards? Afterwards, Romuva community applied to European Court of Human Rights in Strasbourg, because according to Convention of Human Rights, it should it was an opinion of Romuva that it was this convention was breached, and Lithuania is a signatory of this convention. And after 3 years, this court decided that yes, Lithuanian parliament and Lithuania breached the convention, and Lithuanian government and parliament did not present any proof, any data why they treated Romuva otherwise than other religions, other religion communities, because there were many religion communities which were recognized by state communities after 25 years, and when they got this conclusion of Ministry of Justice. There was no reason why Parliament of Lithuania, and I don't speak, not to mention the Catholic Church, treated the Romuva community otherwise. And this was explanation of the Court of Human Rights, European Court of Human Rights, exactly what I said, that there was no reason not to recognize, and it happened so that the Lithuanian parliament was obliged to recognize. It was an attempt in 2023 in September, again to vote in parliament. Again, there was no arguments against the official conclusion of Ministry of Justice that this community has support of society and fits to all rules, ethical things and whatever. And again, parliament, it was several votes were not enough to vote for recognition. There was another attempt to vote not to recognize the Romuva community. And again, it was not a success. They did not pass a decision not to recognize. So what happened afterwards? Afterwards, of course, Romuva community again applied to Court of Human Rights, European Court for Human Rights, asking to enforce the decision of the court. And no, what to say? No doubt, the enforcement will happen, and probably Lithuania will pay millions of euros of penalty because not to enforce the decision of European Court and not fit to convention. So, generally speaking, Lithuanian citizens have a right to choose and practice their religion freely. For example, Romuva community has a right to practice our religion freely. But the regulation system discriminates indigenous religion. It is not, the system is not equally open towards the so-called non-traditional denomination, which is paradox that Romuva community is treated as non-traditional denominations. Then, so these differences especially can be emphasized in this sphere, in education sphere, also in treating of legal status of priests, conditions for social economical activities, state support, etc. In Romuva case, Catholic Church is still fighting medieval war against paganism, not like crusaders with guns, but because of influence in Lithuanian parliament. Majority of parties are afraid of Catholic Church because if Catholic Church will not support or will say a word against any party, it may lose elections or get less votes, etc. Of course, it's very strange that modern Catholic Church, being very flexible in all other questions, in treating, for example, family values, etc., did not change in the question of treating of indigenous religion. The former Pope, John Paul, he was of Polish origin, asked for pardon of pagans because of how Christianity treated paganism and spread the Christianity by war. But nothing happened after that. It's still a problem, and especially in Lithuania, I think the reason is because Romuva community is growing faster than any other, is recognized as national as national religion in our community, in Lithuanian community, and is a big danger that I think it's not so a big danger, but probably the hierarchy of Catholic Church thinks so, that is a big danger, that Lithuanian population will start to return to their indigenous religion. I would say that you should know that our traditional culture is very strong. We got literacy only from 16th century, but oral culture is still very strong. For example, our community and in our calendar and other holidays, festivities, rituals, we are still singing our own Lithuanian songs, which are big part of them are very old. We have about 1 million national songs in in Lithuania, which were written down. Ourselves, we are a live tradition of singing, of traditional holidays, traditional various traditional rituals, and still, and also because of our language, which is the oldest Indo-European language in Europe. Maybe this danger for Catholic Church has some ground, and maybe this is an explanation of such a treatment of human rights, human rights for free practicing of religion in the country which is a member of European Union, which is a member of European Council, which signed the convention, and so on. So it's a paradox that all this treatment of Romuva rights, discrimination of Romuva community in Lithuania, lifts authority of our community. It's as if paradoxically they did not vote for recognition, but they recognized it as a very important for Lithuania and deep-rooted tradition. So Romo community has an alliance with similar Latvian community, which is called God Holders, and there are meetings of priests of both countries. There are also chapters in many other countries in Europe and outside. They are also growing, and there is an opportunity to communicate in modern world, and to grow. So maybe it is of any usefulness for you to know all this story, because very often the so-called Western civilized world accuse, with some ground or without any ground, of on the concerning human rights, that somebody is not, somebody breaches this right, and also in religion, free practicing of religion sphere. But according even Christian attitude, no one should throw a stone not to look firstly at himself. So maybe you can use this story, which hopefully will have a happy end. But it's a story of many years of strange fight against Christian Catholic Church, which has legally no right to interfere, no right to make any activities against other denominations, because Lithuania legally, the state of Lithuania is separated from church. So probably it will be worthwhile if you have any questions or comments.
Thank you very much indeed, Dr. Gintaras Songaila, for your comprehensive presentation on the current status. I'm very happy to say that ICHRRF did host Ainia Trinkunian, the current high priestess of the Romuva religion, a year and a half ago in a special lecture, and will be committed to continue to work with you, the followers of and adherents of Romuva religion in Lithuania, so that the legal discrimination against this ancient and indigenous religion of Lithuania is stopped herewith in 21st century Europe. That is our aim and goal. Before I open it for questions and answers, I have a couple of observations. I think it's a shame for modern Europe. It's a shame for post-Second World War Europe. It's a shame for Europe in 21st century that a native, an ancient, and indigenous faith of Lithuania is still being persecuted by the Christian crusaders. And ICHRRF, as the voice of the voiceless, will continue to work with you, with your fellow followers of Romuva religion. And should it be required, we will be happy to conduct special hearings in Washington, D.C. in near future, so that the cause of Romuva religion is brought forth the international community that professes, religious freedom for all. I'll start with a question of my own. Out of a population of 2.8 million of Lithuania, how many are currently adherents of Romuva religion? If you have that number.
According to popular census, about 2%, but it was in 2021.
Okay.
Maybe it is now about 3%. I don't know really.
Okay.
But according popular census, there is now a trend that even people which do not belong to particular community of Romuva still answer, some of them, that they are of Romuva religion, of all Baltic religion. So this is a trend, and as I said, it's a paradox that this fight against Romuva has another side, the growing popularity and return to traditional culture process.
So I will read sequentially the questions that have been posted in the chat room, starting with RP. And the question is, what are the 3 big goals that you are aiming for the Romuva community?
I'm not in status to answer that question. I'm only advisor and I'm member of community. You should ask, of course, there is a council of priests. As I said, the priests are called Vaidilas. They have the program of development, and of course, one of goals and the maybe major goal is to get a recognition, state recognition of our community as a religion community. Then we would have a right to spread our faith in education system, also there will be some privileges for our Vaidilas, priests, because it's not easy in our country to live such a spiritual way and not to have any other activities which you get bread and and you can afford to not only to live but also to have your family and so on. So this is very important thing. Of course, we have chapters. We do not call them chapters. You have a word in Sanskrit and in Hindi. I know shaka. So we have Lithuanian word the meaning branch shaka, but we also do not use that. We only used the word romuvas. We have everywhere in our country, in all regions, and of course, one of goals is to establish new communities, to attract young people, but it's also a good thing that young people are coming, and of course, to bring our to fight for historical consciousness, to fight for historical heritage, cultural consciousness, awareness of every Lithuanian. And I think the future is bright.
You're right, and I'll move on to the next question. It's by Mr. Shubhramshu Roy, who is an author based in Washington, D.C. And the question he's asking you is, why is the religion called Romuva? What is the etymology and cultural root of that name?
As I said, Romuva is the name of, it was a name of, or to say, main sanctuary, which was between Western and Eastern Baltic nations in nowadays Kaliningrad district, which was occupied by Russia. In 14th century, in the end of 13th century, it was occupied by Crusaders, and it was relocated to Lithuania, to Vilnius, with all the infrastructure, eternal fire, priests, and also regional sanctuaries were called Romuva. The local ones were called Alkas and still are called Alkas. The same origin of the word as in Sanskrit, Arhat. The etymology of Romuva or Ramuva is from word Ramus. Again, similar as in Sanskrit Rama, which means in Lithuanian calm, meditative, not moving, not bothered, peaceful. The difference, if to compare with Sanskrit, that we have not the meaning of joyous. It is not nothing about joyous, but maybe there was such a meaning in all times. So every Lithuanian word has, of course, etymology, and the question was very interesting and important.
There's a next question by Mr. Roy. Why do you call it a pagan religion and not Vedic or Sanatana? Is there a similar word in text similar to Vedas?
We are not Vedic religion. we have many similarities with Vedic religion. Also, our language has many similarities with Sanskrit, but it's a different tradition. And of course, the word pagan is bad. It was used as a label by Christians. And sorry that I use it, but in Europe, it is, you can understand what you speak about. Nobody in Europe will understand if we will say, or in any other international community, when we will say Romuva community. But when we will say pagan, they will understand. Only because of these practical reasons, we still use that word, but we do not like it. We in Lithuanian language, we say Romuviai, the followers of Romuva religion, we say Romuviai. In Lithuanian text, we do not use pagan, but Christians do use.
I think you have made it very amply clear, but in order to assert your self-identity, you have to define the narrative and start calling yourself Romuvi like Sanatani instead of calling yourself pagan, because pagan
But
has
you know,
become...
in English language, you cannot flex words. You can, so there are no declinations, etc. So when we say Romuvi, it means that it is nominative case and plural and so on. Romuvi, Romuviu, and so on. So in English language, it's difficult to express all that. Only because of that. And we say Romuva, which is strange because it is like not declinated word. Is a name of sanctuary, but the followers are not called Romuva. Followers are called Romuvi, and we do that in our society. We call Romuvi.
The next question is by Mr. Carl Clemens, and the question is, in which European country are the pagan revivalists treated most fairly and why?
Most what?
Fairly.
Fairly?
Fairly. Most kindly.
It's difficult to speak, to answer such question. You should know that Lithuanians and Romuviai, okay, we are initiators of all European movement, and Jonas Trinkūnas, which was a highest priest, late Jonas Trinkūnas, was maybe one of leaders of this European movement, and many neo-pagan communities, they established a European Congress, what we say, of such religions. Of course, we have direct relations with many communities in other countries, and in all these countries, they're doing their best and they're doing the practice fairly. If to say about influence, about the authenticity, how to say, it's not question for me. I am not a researcher of all these communities. I know that Celtic tradition is reviving. I know that many Slavic traditions are reviving. It is not so easy in German-speaking countries because, except Scandinavian countries, because their traditions were ruined very in old times. But even there, we have such a movement. And not to mention that there is a world Congress of Indigenous Religion, which was established also in participation of Jonas Trinkūnas and our Romuva movement. And we are very what to say, and we also felt there's some support of this World Congress of Religions, which they sent a letter afterwards, after all this failure to recognize Romuva religion, to our government and parliament. And also there was a letter even from Dalai Lama. So we are indigenous religion, but we have such also international background, not to mention India, not to mention Vedic and in Hindi tradition, many of these traditions which are in India. Myself, I was 6 times in such a pilgrimages, how to say, which was supported by International Center of Cultural International Center of Cultural Heritage in India, in which were there were many congresses, which many indigenous countries from all the world were participating and presenting their culture. So I think this is very important mission of India and chapters in other countries. Thank you for the support. We are very grateful.
There are 2 more questions, and both the questions are by our members of our executive team. The first one I will allow Mr. Kofi Sarpong, who is director of our Africa outreach. I'll ask him to give his question directly. Kindly unmute yourself, Kofi. Kindly unmute yourself, Kofi.
Yes, thank you very much, and I really appreciate Doctor for coming in to give us all of that information, and it's a very eye-opening. My question seems a little bit long, so I thought I will ask directly. It seems that the foreign religions feel very threatened. When I talk about foreign religions, I'm talking about the Catholic religions and all of those. So they feel very, very threatened by the traditional ones that existed prehistorically before they came in. So my question is that with your expertise and your knowledge and your research and with your background, why is it so? Because when it comes to Ghana and Africa and even some part of Europe that still have the old traditional religion, they are still doing their best to make sure that they suppress and oppress them. Because I personally met one young lady in Austria, Innsbruck, when I was there, and the grandmother used to practice their very, very old traditional religion where they used to do some rituals for some waterfalls, and the grandmother used to do a few lot of things with it. And I was asking her, how is it going? Like, are people indulging in it? And she said, absolutely no. So when a grandmother passed away, it means that the thing is dead. But when you look at it, you see that it's a calculative narrative to make sure that they kill all of those traditional religions. And it's sad that, even in Europe, it's happening. So my question is, from your experience, why is that something like this is going on? I mean, they are the advocates of freedom of speech, democracy, freedom of worship, and all of that. But behind the scenes, they are doing quite a few different things. Please.
Thank you, Kofi, for your question. Dr. Gintaras Songaila, kindly.
Yes, I got a question, and it's not simple. It was a long question and not easy to answer such question. You should know the history of Europe. So all these crusades, all these, even we would say in 13th, 14th century, especially in 13th century, it was like a totalitarian Christian Catholic imperium. You remember all these inquisitions and all that. So after Renaissance, things changed, but not so deeply as you would think. The majority of people especially in Western and also some in Central Europe, they treat their civilization as having roots in Christianity. It's like Christianity was a flagman, how to say, was a avant-garde of civilization and progress. It was not a case in medieval times, but somehow in modern times, this idea that all civilization comes from Christianity, from literacy from Christianity, and even science, universities in medieval times were controlled by Catholic Church, and sometimes they say that it is Christianity has this, how to say, advantage that they established these universities. So it was a big breakthrough to all world, civilization. And not to mention these 19th century colonization wars and all that expansion of Europe in all worlds. And very often they came with a flag of Christianity, you know better than I. With all these missions and whatever. And still alive, a mission to convert to Christianity. Then you will become a civilized, modern, high value person. So this tradition is still alive. And I am not so sure that they are afraid of revival of pagan or indigenous religion in many countries in Western Europe, but maybe they are afraid in Eastern Europe. I would not explain why they are so oppressive. I cannot understand, but this is maybe impetus, inertion, and all that. We should look at all this so-called Western civilization more deeply, because very often it has indigenous roots. There is no separate Christian culture. It was implied onto indigenous traditions and cultures. And they deny that. They are trying not to let to people to be aware, to have awareness about all that. And this is very long answer. But
Thank you, Dr. Songaila, on answering very appropriately that question. I'm going to invite our newly appointed Director of Research for Roma Studies, Dr. Giulietta Rotaru, who has a question for you. And since she is here, I would let her ask the questions directly.
Thank you very much, Adityanji, for allowing me to ask my question to your distinguished guest, whom I listened with pleasure, because I've been in the beautiful capital Vilnius, and in the main square, there is a church in neoclassic style, and I have been told by my Sanskrit colleagues from Sanskrit department that there used to be a Percunia temple there, on that very spot where nowadays there is a church. Is that true?
You mean a church in Vilnius? You mean in Vilnius or what?
Yes, Vilnius, the main square, and the neoclassic church. But that's not my question, maybe.
You mean cathedral?
Yes, cathedral.
In cathedral, and the underground of the cathedral is still a place where the eternal fire was preserved, and there is a stone which was used for that. But Catholic Church do not let tourists to go to this underground. Myself, I have seen it by my eyes.
Precisely, the Catholic Church, because my question outsourced from this position of Catholic Church, which I understand is the state religion.
No, it's not a state religion. Officially, it is separated, but it has a privileged status. You're right, yes.
Yes, because how was it during Soviet times when I see that you know better than I do that there were the studies of the world-acclaimed Indo-European scholar Maria Gimbutas, and then you had an Indian scholar, paramount Indian scholar Suniti Kumar Chatterjee, who came to your country and collected data and then wrote a monograph.
Yeah, I know. There's the only Indian book.
Was it
the only Indian book about our historical relations? Yes.
No, but the time of this exchange was important because it was done in the 60s. So do you think that the Romuva culture was doing somehow better during the Soviet time? This is my question. Because you said that...
you know, you should understand the Soviet system. When somebody from foreign countries came in such province as it was then Soviet Lithuania, this is not so easy. And of course, the Chatterjee was controlled by KGB and all the with whom he meets or whatever. For example, even a Catholic Church was suppressed by Soviet system. For example, a cathedral was a garage for tanks. So, of course, our goal is to develop Indian-Baltic relations, and especially in the field of research, because this only book written by Kumari Chatterjee is not enough. It seems I am in charge, of course, also to finish such book, but it seems that all the Indian nation was a neighbor of a forest civilization in Eastern Europe, which was a Baltic speaking area, except very north area, which was Finno-Ugric speaking. So there are books written, for example, by Russian very known philologists, that all Indian languages, Sanskrit and Prakrit, were used in nowadays southern Ukraine, especially exactly in that place which the war is going now. They were Shivaists, not simply. They had Shastras, and there are many toponyms, historical resources which show all that. And somehow, even in India, there is no real interest in all that. I don't understand why. Why Russia? I understand why, because they say that Russia is eternal and so on. But Russia was established as an imperium of Russia, established only in 1725. It was Moscow Tsardom before, and Kiev Rus before Lithuanian statehood. So the history is much more complicated than Russians, especially nowadays, Russian present. And the Western scientists were not aware very long. No, only now they are starting to understand that all this propaganda, which was studied even in Western universities about the history of Eastern Europe, is nonsense.
Okay, I'll go on to the next issue. There's a comment by one of our audience members, Morgana. I think she is from Netherlands, and she is responding to a question that Mr. Clemens had asked. And her brief explanation is, Carl, I can attest that in Netherlands, pagans and heathens are treated with the same respect as other religions, simply because there's no state religion. And in the constitution, everyone has the right to believe what they want. What is not accepted is incitement to hate. That is the brief answer. So at least Netherlands is much more, let's say, emancipated in their thinking, not associating state religion to Christianity or anything like that. As long as you propagate your religion without inciting hate or violence, you would be accepted.
I have a question, very short. I know that in Scandinavian countries, they also say that there's no state religion, but still they pay taxes. Every citizen pays taxes to maintain Christian churches and so on. Is it not the case in Netherlands the same?
I would request Morgana to answer that question. If you can come on the platform and unmute yourself, Morgana. She says no.
I know Morgana, yes.
She says,
I'll
It's good to see.
start my video as well, just to make sure that you can actually see me. It's pretty complicated, but the irony is that in the Netherlands, there has been a growing tendency for separation of church and state, and yet in Belgium, which is like, you know, next door, they do still have church laws which insist that every time a baby's born, you know, money's paid to the Catholic Church. So all those antiquated church laws are certainly not really part of our society anymore. They've already been scrapped. But as I say, that what's been stated here as well, the whole history of Europe, of course, it's been dominated by Christianity. Our education system, and for many people, it's still the Christian values and norms are part of our sense of right and wrong. So it's not surprising that the church as a body are, you know, obviously very sad to see the churches are completely being abandoned for what we call here religious. Well, it's multi-religious belonging. We've actually got people who've got multi-religious belonging, MRBers, that's even termed, because there are more people who are doing a kind of mix and match. So Christians who are looking at Buddhism. But I think that's the beauty of, you know, the spiritual traditions we have, that many people are realizing that there is something to be learned from all traditions. And I think that's what we're trying to do in the Netherlands as well, to say that not one particular way has all the answers. And if we really want to be a wise community, then it's prudent to actually look at all the different spiritual traditions. And I think in the Netherlands, that is actually what we're trying to do. I would say that we are trying to be multi-faith in the Netherlands rather than interfaith, because from a multi-faith perspective, of course, you can see all the different spiritual traditions. So I think what I see in Lithuania as well is it's a difficult balance. I understand that, but I think if we're going to be accepting of all religions including Christianity, then we have to be a little bit more willing to find out more about the traditions themselves. So I always say, even from an interfaith point of view, it's pertinent that we get to know a little bit more about the religions and why comparative religion or looking at philosophical traditions is also, for me, an extremely important part of education.
Thank
so
you,
I'd just like to
for your comment, and thank you for coming to our platform. The next opportunity I'll give you, there's an unsolicited advice by RP. RP, why don't you come on record and give your advice to Dr. Songaila directly, rather than me reading that particular advice. RP, do you wish to do that? I guess this person has left, but I will read it. An unsolicited advice: if you need recognition, come up with a narrative for your cause and get in touch with either Sadhguru or Shri Ravi Shankar or both of them. A single tweet or reference in their conversation will do that, give you more prominence internationally, and then you can take further based on their recommendation. So he's saying that engage either with Sadhguru or Shri Ravi Shankar on the social media, and once they kind of respond to your query or whatever, you will have much more visibility for your cause.
Thank you.
Okay, there are not very many questions. I'm going to invite Mr. Roy. He wanted a clarification, and although you had said that, but I'll let him ask you directly about that clarification on Vedila. Kindly unmute yourself.
Yes, can you hear me? So did you say that your piece is called Vedila? Am I right?
Yes.
Vedila. In English, that's how you'd spell it?
Vaidila in Lithuania. Vaidila. It is from the word to know, as in Vedas, to know, to see, to perform. And my colleagues in India even said that the place where fire is preserved in India is called Vedi, whatever. So it's a similar tradition, very old tradition. And Vaidilas and in feminine Vaidilutes were common. They were like Vestals, in Rome, or Hestias in Greek.
Sorry, sir, if I may. I'm sorry to interrupt.
But the name of Vaidilas is, of course, very, very similar to Vedic tradition.
Now, the interesting point is you said Romos is very similar to Rama in Sanskrit. Here you have Vedila as your priest, and it is so similar to the Vedic priest that we talk about Vedi. Vedi that you say is the fire altar where you sacrifice.
Yeah.
I have happened to read a bit about the Rus nation, which started in Ukraine. And
Lith?
I have read in some detail about the history of the Rus, which actually started around Kiev, and you have your ones that you make over here. And I've also read about the Arab travelers who went up to north to near the Arctic Circle through what is now Russia. Now, all these points, interestingly, you say Vedi, and then you say Romus, as etymologically it originates from similar to Rama in Sanskrit. In Ramayana, you have actually, Valmiki's Ramayana, you have references to the continent, which are very similar to what is there in Siberia and in Eastern Europe, closer to the Arctic area. And still you say that it is not Sanatan Dharma. You had, the whole region used to cremate bodies before Christianity, before burial came into practice. And the method of cremation was the same as we still do it in India. We create small boats, wooden boats, kind of structure on which we place the body, these are also similar. And you yourself said that southern Ukraine was very similar to was a neighbor of Vedic India. You said it a while ago. Most of the names are still in Sanskrit. Why do you say that it is not the Sanatan Dharma, it is not Sanskrit religion, it's not Vedic, it is similar? What is the research there?
Okay, Dr. Songaila.
I can answer. Even when you say Sanata Dharma, I understand. Sanata, Sanas, old, Dharma, Dharma, Dharna, Dharme is no Dharma, harmony, religion, and so on. The same words, very similar words in Lithuanian. You should know that old Indians which spoke Sanskrit or Prakrit, at what time you will look, you should examine. But it's not a sheer speculation. You should understand that there are borrowings in Finno-Ugric languages, which are very north in Europe. From what? From Sanskrit. So it means that up to southern Ural and even to the west from these steppes, they were living so-called Aryan people, which were old Indian people. Now, how to say, the science has a tradition to name them as Eastern Iranians. I do not hesitate that, of course, there were also some Iranians here, but there are many facts about old Indian Sanskrit, Prakrit toponyms in southern Ukraine, and you see, and also borrowings in northern Siberian nations. So my explanation is that India should look at this proto-history more wide, as you say, bigger Indian, greater India. Especially when we speak about antique times and even how to say very beginning of medieval times. So, but it does not mean that every such tradition which was influenced by Vedic tradition and later traditions should be should be said that they are all the same tradition.
Thank you,
But
Dr.
why is that so? Why should it not become said the same? If you remove the religion out of the present geographical boundary,
I think
the
we are.
nation state of India.
You should look at our tradition. You should examine Lithuanian language, songs, and all history to understand that. So if you will try, even if you know Sanskrit, if you will try to read in Lithuanian, it will be not a success. But this does not mean that it's probably the most not distant languages, but very common languages. For the system, grammatical system is for example, future time is only in Sanskrit and in Lithuanian language with formant s. So there was no future languages, future tenses. Sorry, in the European languages.
I think we had enough discussion on this topic. We are deviating from the
Many common things, but
which
not
is on the
so easy.
Romuva religion in Lithuania and its persecution or discrimination against. We can continue to have academic debates on etymology, linguistics, and all. That would be a separate forum. So I'm going to end this discussion right now. My heartfelt thanks to Dr. Gintaras Songaila We are really, really thankful to you for taking time, valuable time for almost 1.5 hours to talk to us on the Romuva religion in Lithuania. I'm also highly thankful to our audience members from wherever they are. We really appreciate you participating in this. We hope that you will continue to grace our platform in future events also. And basically, it's a pleasure to have all of you from different parts of the world who have come in this important Speaking Up series. We have one lecture a month related to human rights, religious freedom. So we will be back next month in month of July with a different topic, and we will send our announcements on Eventbrite in advance. Till that time, thank you very much indeed. And my heartiest thanks to Dr. Songaila for his very interesting presentation, which generated so much of discussion. Thank you very much indeed, everyone. So we are closing the meeting now. Bye-bye.